Okay, good to go, Mark.
Okay. All right, we'll get started here. It's March 29, 2021, work session. We'll get underway here. It's 5:31 p.m. and two items that we have on the work session this evening. Item number one is that diversified workforce. I think Kevin Noreen is presenting on that one with some other folks joining him. And then the second item for the work session is district equity work, and that will be Osvaldo Garcia Contreras with that piece this evening. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Noreen, and take it away.
All right, good evening, Chair Everett. Good evening, board members. I just want to thank you for inviting us tonight to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing in the Forest Grove School District on diversifying the workforce. Again, my name is Kevin Noreen. I'm the Director of Human Resources. And before we get started, I have some panelists that are going to be co-presenting with me tonight. So if I could have each of them just introduce themselves right now, that would be great. Maybe start with Marina.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Marina Alvarez, not Kevin Noreen. I am the coordinator for the Diverse Educator Pathway Program through Northwest Regional ESD.
And I'm Kate Eckert, the School and Community Partnership Coordinator for Pacific University.
And my name is Anita Zeidemans-Boudreau. I'm the Director of the School of Learning and Teaching on the Forest Grove campus.
Excellent. And so they're going to participate and co-present. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get into our presentation. So as I said, tonight we want to share with you some information on our work here in the district regarding diversifying the workforce. This is a photo that was taken at the 2019 Oregon Association of Latino Administrators Conference, known as OWALA. And we every year take a large contingent to that conference and really have a great exposure for our classified staff, certified staff, administrators, and administrators. So we'll kind of get started here. So when we're talking about diversifying the workforce, our goal is to recruit, hire, and retain a diverse workforce that matches the ethnic and racial diversity of our student population. We have developed multiple pathways to do this for our BIPOC population, or Black, Indigenous, and people of color population. And again, we're going to share with you some details tonight about those different pathways. And then also just share with you, I'm also in the process of participating in a program at the ESD about reviewing our current hiring practices and hiring strategies and see what, if any, adjustments we need to make in order to meet our goals. So the Oregon Educator Advancement Council has been producing the Oregon Educator Equity Report for the last couple of years that address the need to hire and retain a more diverse workforce, particularly in regards to our licensed staff. So I want to share with you the next couple slides, just some data from this report. And again, the Educator Advancement Council empowers, supports, and diversifies Oregon's educator workforce through local educator-led networks and statewide resources to provide the quality teaching and learning that Oregonians desire. So the first set of data that I want to share with you, first of all, in the report, it calls out and looks at districts who have 40% or more students of color. And so this is just a snapshot of a few of the districts, and I'll explain how I got to showing you these 5 districts here. So again, our goal, right, is to find a way to hire, retain that diverse workforce that matches our ethnic and racial diversity of our student population. So we're looking at, and I created the column on the far right, which is to look at that difference between what is our population, a percentage of students of color, and then what's our percentage of teachers of color. So for the 1920 school year, we had 27% teachers of color, which is the second highest percentage of teachers of color in the state of Oregon. Woodburn is first with 34% teachers of color. And then our 60% students of color is tied for 11th highest percentage of students of color in the state. So then what I did is I pulled together the data and looked at, okay, who is the closest to meeting that goal of having your percentage of students of color match, or your percentage of teachers of color match your students of color. And we actually come out as the 5th highest, or I guess the district that has the 5th smallest difference between our percentage of students of color versus our percentage of teachers of color. And then the next slide here is talks about administrators. So it's the same, looking at the same percentage comparisons, if you will. And again, we had 36% percentage of administrators of color, which was the second highest percentage in the state of Oregon. And then we have the second smallest gap between the percentage of students of color and administrators of color behind Portland Public. So the next slide just shows some trending data that has been gathered by the state. And so you can see that the students are in that yellow line at the top, the green are the administrators, and then the blue are the teachers. So, you know, in looking at this, at least over a 9-year period, we are trending up. We've had a couple little blips where things have gone down for, you know, various reasons. I can't pinpoint them all for you tonight, but just wanted to give you some trend data to show, you know, where we are. And obviously we want to continue that trend going up and shrinking that gap between the students and the administrators of color and teachers of color. So the next thing, and this will become obvious with having our co-presenters tonight, is that at least from my philosophy in terms of how are we going to continue to diversify our workforce, really relies in partnering with our post-secondary, but also with our other districts. So tonight, Marina is going to talk a little bit about the partnerships that we've developed with the Northwest Regional Education Service District. By the way, Marina is a Forest Grove High School graduate. So just want to put that out to the team that we've got already that great connection there. Then you'll see that we've partnered with some of our other Washington County districts like Tigard-Tualatin, Hillsborough, Beaverton, and Sherwood. Of course, we have our strong partnership with Pacific University. And again, Anita and Kate are here to represent the partnerships that we've been developing and culminating over these years. And then Portland Community College, we'll talk about that a little bit later in one of the pathways. Portland State University is a partner of ours that we've partnered with on a grant. And then Western Oregon University. So at least from the standpoint of how we're trying to be effective and grow and develop, I've really found that it's been very, very important to have those partnering entities out there in the region so that we can work on this together, because it's not something that we can just do solely on our own. So the 3 pathways that we're going to talk about that we've developed, or that in conjunction with some of our partners, we have a pathway for our current classified staff. We have a pathway for people that live in our community. I'm a firm believer that we have future educators that live in Washington County, live in the Forest Grove area, live in Cornelius. And so that's another pathway that we're exploring and working and developing. and then our current high school students. And Marina is going to talk with us a little bit about what we're doing and how we're doing to develop that pathway. So I'm going to talk first about the classified staff pathway. So 2 years ago, we held our first meeting as we were starting out our partnership on the Diverse Educator Pathway program with the other Washington County school districts I listed on the previous slides, along with the Northwest ESD. And we held this meeting. This is a photo from our first meeting 2 years ago. And it was really great. First of all, we had a great turnout, but we also invited and had current teachers of color in our district who started as classified staff. And so, you know, our classified staff who came to this meeting, I think that really helped kind of hear from teachers that are in our district now about, well, how did you get onto this pathway? What were kind of the things that you needed assistance with or had questions about? We also had some of our administrators of color. You can see Osvaldo there on the left-hand side, Chelsea Ione on the right. And that night was really just about kind of listening and learning to folks to find out what type of questions do they have and how can we better help support them on their pathway. We actually already had staff 2 years ago that were already in teacher preparation programs. And 2 years ago, we started our first summer program with 3 of these folks called our Future Teacher Instructional Assistant position, where we had them work side by side with other bilingual teachers teaching in our summer school program. Ultimately, 2 of those participants have since been hired as full-time bilingual teachers in our district. So we've already, I feel like, have had some good success there. So this year we had another meeting with our classified staff and had about 20 people attend or contact me and say that they were interested. So we have a good pool of classified staff that we're going to continue to support and develop and help answer their questions on what they need to do and resources to become a teacher. So now I'm going to ask Kate and Anita to talk about our community member pathway.
Thank you, Kevin. And I have to mention, it's been such a pleasure working with Kevin on all of this pathway work. It really, we have quite a group working together on this. And it's every time we get together and hold one of these information sessions, it means a lot to the community member participants, the classified staff participants, I'm sure the high school participants as well, just that these opportunities exist and we're reaching out to bring teachers in. So for the community pathway, as Kevin said, we believe the culturally and or linguistically diverse teachers that we need already exist in our communities, either as classified staff or people we want to be classified staff to help get them classroom experience to become teachers. So our hope is to reach out, make connections with community members and help them with each step of their pathway towards teacher licensure. So candidates receive individual mentoring and resources to help them with what they need, whether it be transcript evaluation or translation, help obtaining a GED, or help gaining English language skills. We also provide onboarding support with school districts, either as a volunteer, substitute, or classified staff member, depending on their needs to help them gain this classroom experience, and onboarding support with PCC and Pacific. We're finding that community members might have been burned in the past with poor advising, been misadvised, and we know the community college systems are complex. So we're trying to create a clear pathway with a web of support around community members who are interested in being a teacher. So our group started meeting in December 2019. In March 2020, we held our first round of information sessions. Here are pictures from the one we held at Pacific Hillsborough campus. And on our flyers, so we're being mindful of accessibility. to these. So on our flyers, which were in English and Spanish, we included public transit information. We provided childcare. We provided food. We provided translation services. And then in February 2021, this past February, we held 2 more information sessions on Zoom this year for COVID, one in the evening, one in the morning. We also reached out to community organizations to help us advertise, news outlets as well. There's a nice KGW article about our information sessions. Shout out to Narse for helping spread the word through her EDI committees, or communities rather, about these events. So at these events, we have a couple presentations, including some current teachers of color who talk about their stories, their pathway, and explain why we need the audience, why we need you to become a teacher in Washington County. And we try to save as much time as possible at these events for advising stations. So each individual candidate can get answers to their questions and specific information for what they need. Hey, I think that's everything I wanted to say. Anita and Kevin, anything you wanted to add on?
Yeah, I'd be happy to add a few words. I think one of the things that's been really powerful for me in being involved with this partnership is that groups that you might typically think are in competition with each other, like districts, and then the collaborative nature of this work has been what has been the power, bringing together districts who were all in the same boat, looking to try and open up pathways into licensure for groups that the literature shows they tend to find a real bottleneck between high school and university. And so having the community college, PCC, at the table has been hugely important. It really helps open up opportunities. Having Northwest Regional ESD, and even although we're the only ones here Pacific today, we also have other universities that are involved too. So we've taken a very collaborative, let's work together. We all have the same problem. Let's try and really improve options for people of color statewide, not just within our own little communities. So that's been very powerful, and I think a really strong point for the work that we're doing. That's just really, other than that, I think Kate and Kevin have covered everything else.
All right, thank you. So that covers our community pathway. Next, we're going to have Marina talk about our pathway for our current high school students. So Marina.
Thank you, Kevin. So as Kevin mentioned, I get the amazing opportunity to work with our BIPOC students within all the school districts we partner with that want to become educators, right? So we offer a lot of one-on-one individualized support for all our participants. We recognize that working with first-gen students is unique, right? They need a lot of individualized support that other folks might not need. And I'm talking also from personal experience. I like to share a story of when I was in high school and my TRIO advisor, right? She took time on a Saturday, right? Like on her weekend to take my mom and myself to Western, right? And she gave us a tour and she connected me with an advisor. Had my mom really feel comfortable knowing where I would be living, right? And why I needed to be there and how everything worked. So this is what we want to provide for our participants. We know that there's a lot of barriers for diverse folks going into education. So we want to provide the resources available for them to make that transition easier for them. The first one is going into higher ed. I think Anita made a great comment right now in how we work together. It's important for us to connect all our participants with folks that are going to be their community of support. So knowing Kate, knowing Anita, knowing folks at Western or whatever university or college that our participants want to go to is crucial, right? Having someone that's going to explain financial aid and not have them feel uncomfortable or scared. So building all these relationships with our participants and for them to build this support. And also building that support and that connection with the school district, right? We want our participants to come back to their home districts. Who better to be the educators than them? They've been through the schools, they've been through the system, they know what needs to change. So we want them to come back. So I get to collaborate with Kevin, right? And do awesome things like our community gatherings where he was able to get folks to come and talk, right? Educators of color at Forest Grove School District to come share their story. And our students are able to listen to what their journey into education has been like, because there are so many pathways, right? So many ways for you to become an educator and getting to that point. So we're able to have them build that relationship with their school district. And that makes it easier for them as they come back. They know people, right? These can be their future mentors, and they will feel supported when they come back, right? And we want to retain them here. So those are some of the supports we provide. We've also provide paid internships for them. So again, how can we best support them to come back, to feel comfortable in this journey? We want to provide them with paid summer internships that will help them afford college, right? Pay for everything because it is very expensive, but also gain experience in a classroom, right? So we want to provide them with a diverse options and experiences for them. And we were lucky enough also this year to get awarded a Grow Your Own grant. So one of the initiatives with that is being able to hire connectors at all our school district partners. So we're going to, increase the number of folks who can do the work and support participants going into this field. And another big initiative through that grant is that we are providing a free credit-bearing summer course. So again, this is open to students, but also all participants going into the DEP, community members and classified staff as well. So, this is a Growing Your Own program, heavily based on relationship building. It's grassroots. So all these collaborations between all parties here, right, is important. So thank you, Kevin, for inviting us. And yeah.
Excellent. So as you can see, right, I mean, these three ladies are amazing to work with, but they've got their passion, but they also know what our folks need in order to move this forward and help diversify our workforce. So the first thing I'm going to say about this photo is I need to do a better job of cueing people, especially myself, when I try to grab a screenshot, because I have a horrible look on my face and I didn't tell Marina to look at the camera. So I'll have to laugh about this a little bit. But if you can get past the funny expressions, this was our first meeting with our 3 high school graduates. These are first year students at Western Oregon. So Andrea is up in the top right, Anayeli is right below her, and then Vanessa is in the bottom left. And so I asked, we had 2 of our teachers, Elvira Alcantar and Lourdes Medina, along with Osvaldo and Mariela Mireles, come and just meet these graduates, meet these first year students and answer any questions and just share and talk and start cultivating that relationship like Marina talked about. So our plan is to carry out and continue to have meetings with these 3 ladies as they go through their journey, stay connected with them. As Marina said, we're working on building in some internships and some some opportunities in our summer school program to really teach and work side by side. So I'll just hit a couple of quick, couple more quick outcomes, and then we'll keep moving on. So with our classified staff pathway, we've been, as I said, able to hire 3 of our former classified bilingual staff into dual language teaching positions. Currently, we have 3 BIPOC classified staff enrolled in teacher preparation programs. And then, as Kate alluded to, we've had 2 years now in a row of community members where we've gotten to meet with some folks and start building up kind of our pool of applicants of people that are, and then with Marina helping us bring these 3 ladies to Western Oregon University and starting our first cohort. We're really, really excited about that. So again, as just I hit on a little bit earlier about some of the practices that I'm working on in human resources along with the district. First of all, I talked with you about, I'm in this group with the ESD with other HR directors about transforming our human resource practices and really looking at our practices and seeing are there things in our current ways of doing business that are barriers or they're creating unintentional barriers. And Osvaldo's not trying to steal some of his thunder tonight, but we've established affinity groups for our BIPOC staff members And that is also something out of the Oregon Educator Equity Report that they talk a lot about, with trying to do everything we can to retain our staff of color. And then also mentors, right, for our newly hired BIPOC educators. And Marina alluded to that with our connectors, right, with our staff that way. So recruitment, you know, something that I've brought to the district since I started here was making sure that we bring a diverse team when we go out and recruit at our job fairs. So we want to make sure that we have teachers and administrators of color to show that, you know, this is important to us and this is who we are in Forest Grove. And then the last thing I'll just hit up, and then we can take a little bit of time for questions. We have successfully partnered with 3 Grow Your Own grants. So one of those Marina talked about already. That's the second bullet down about working with hiring current staff to mentor our other future BIPOC educators in our classified ranks. We partnered with Portland State University, and we have 2 classified staff who will be receiving tuition reimbursement based on our partnering with them for that state grant. And then the third grant that we participated and were successful with is called the Teacher Connect. And again, that is another program that we're involved with our partners here tonight from Pacific, along with Portland Community College and some of our other Washington County school districts. And really just the niche there that we were really trying to identify, and we've talked about with the 3 pathways, is that community college student, you know, and maybe right when they graduated from high school, when Marina has been talking with them, they're not quite decided yet, are I going to be a teacher, but maybe I'm going to start at the community college level. And so that's what we decided to do, was to write this grant with Pacific, PCC, and our other school districts to say, can we get somebody embedded at the community college level that can help reach out and contact and be a resource for students at the community college level who now say, oh, you know, I never thought about being a teacher, but now that you mention it, I'm ready to go, and where are the resources and who can help me? The final highlight that I want to bring up tonight, again, is our partnership with Pacific and with PCC. And we're also partnering with Hillsborough School District on our Critical Educator of Color pathway. And again, we take more questions. Kate is very involved in working on this. And again, basically, we are creating a program and looking for future teachers who are interested in teaching ethnic studies. That's going to be a curriculum requirement in a few years from the state. And so we're partnering with these partners on the screen and developing and getting people to apply to this program. We're going to start it off with just a small group of people where they would take classes at PCC and ultimately matriculate and move up into Pacific to get their teaching licensure and come out and be ready. So we're recruiting. In fact, Kate and I sat in on some interviews and met some amazing classified staff from our district and from Hillsborough that we think are going to just be great contributors to this other program. So, so with that, I appreciate the time tonight, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions, and I'll stop sharing my screen, but we really just wanted to share with you the work that we're doing here with all of our partners.
So I'll just ask the first question. So do you find it, I mean, teaching is hard anymore, is it? Do you find people who are you finding people who, do you have to twist people's arms too much to get them to go down the road of teaching, Kevin, or anybody on the committee, just because no?
I don't think so, Mark. I mean, one of the things that I had a kind of some questions that I asked when I first met our most recent cohort of graduates. I asked them, I said, why are you choosing to go into teaching? And I mean, Mark, and for the rest of you that have been working in education and know this, like, I mean, it all comes from here, right? They all of them said, you know what? I wasn't able to have as many teachers of color in my experiences, and I really want to be that teacher in front of the students, right? And be able to connect with families, to talk, in the Spanish language, and just have that conversation and be very, just a resource. But they all three of them just gave amazing answers that just, you could tell from their heart, like, this is why I want to go to teaching. It's what I hear all the time when we interview teachers, or people that are trying to become teachers in our district. So
the other thing I would add to that too is one thing we've noticed from the university perspective, working with the Grow Your Own programs in district, is that people who are coming through classified positions, they know what they're getting into, right? So I think that just sort of works with what Kevin was saying too. So I actually see this as a very positive way to recruit and retain future teachers.
Thanks.
This is Narce. Just wanted to say thank you to Kevin, Marina, Kate, and Anita for a wonderful presentation. I had a couple of questions, but they were all answered throughout the presentation that you all did. I'm excited about Osvaldo Garcia looking at the affinity groups and the retention also of our BIPOC within the district. So I'm really excited about that. I also just want to say that in one of the particular slides that you had, Kevin, that had the one that you said the faces looked a little funny. So I just wanted to make a comment here because 3 of those particular teachers were my daughter's teachers. And they were in elementary school, middle school, and high school. So we had Miss Mireles and I think Medina and then Osvaldo Garcia. So all of my daughters, 2 of my daughters have gone through the Forest Grove School District. And something to not take for granted is that all of the role models were women of color. And one of them is 23 and one is 20. They're both Pacific students, and one just got accepted into the graduate program in teaching here at Pacific University. She got accepted at Arcadia University, at a University of Boston, and she chose to come to Pacific because of because it's home, and also because she likes to give back. And Dr. Garcia has been also an amazing male role model for many of our students. And then the other thing I wanted to share was the ethnic studies. So I think it would be good for us in the future to invite Dr. Sarah Phillips and Dr. Matt Town from the College of Arts and Science, because they're right now they're in conversation about what does ethnic studies look like at Pacific University. And one of the things that I think we have an opportunity for is that I worked at Portland Community College for 18 years, and there was a lot of foundation work to get their ethnic studies program going. So what we're already seeing and experiencing from our students that are transferring from Portland Community College, in particular at the Rock Creek campus, because we used to do all the zip codes and see where our kids were coming from, and they were from Cornelius and Forest Grove and Hillsborough. And when they get to us, they're already feeling some disappointment because they're ready for the 300 level ethnic studies, and we haven't packaged that well for them yet. So I'm just putting in a plug and also holding us accountable here at Pacific University. So I'm speaking with my Pacific hat right now, not necessarily as a board member, but I'm also going to put pressure as a board member at Pacific University to do that as well. So I just wanted to share that, how important it is for us to prepare for that ethnic studies here. And I just want to say thank you. I've had the privilege in my career to actually Lucinda Aguilar, who was part of that little box. She was my student when she was a student at Portland Community College wanting to become a teacher. So I love teachers. I work with the Portland, with the bilingual teacher pathway program at Portland State many years, and also the Portland Teachers Program at PCC and also PSU. So thank you for the amazing work you're all doing. Oh, and Marina, I think the TRIO who was your advisor for TRIO? Was it Vicky, Eduardo, or who was it?
I think it was Vicky. I would remember more if you gave me her last name.
Sanchez Lopez.
No, entonces I don't think it was Vicky. Era una señora mayor.
Or Maria Lanis.
Maybe. I think her name was Maria. She was in Beaverton as well. So I know she like split time between
Yes.
both schools.
Right. The reason I bring that up is because Dr. Parker is working on trying to hopefully we'll get the TRIO back to Forest Grove School District. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was going to bring that up when Marina mentioned it. We pushed out they're re-upping their grant. We pushed out our letters of support. It looks like we fit into the right situation. So if they get the grant, then we'll be able to put TRIO's mentors in the high school and at the middle school. And so that's looking pretty good. I'm expecting to hear between now and the end of May whether or not it's going to happen. But that's, again, just another good mentor program for us and our students.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much for the presentation. That was really informative, and I think we all appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. So the next topic is Osvaldo is talking about district equity work. And so I'll turn it over to Osvaldo.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. And really would like to appreciate the opportunity from the school board to really inviting me here in my new capacity. Obviously, my name is Osvaldo Garcia Contreras, and most recently was the principal at Neil Armstrong Middle School. And right now, I have been given the responsibility to be the coordinator of ELL services, migrant services, and also the district equity work. It's a long title, but I gotta tell you, I enjoy it. I came to the Forest Grove School District in the year 2007, and I still love the work. I still love that equity work. That was one of the things that made me come from Portland Public Schools to Forest Grove, and it hasn't changed. So one of the reasons why that's happened is because the level of support that I have gotten from the community, and that here is Narce, from the kids. Look at all these kids, you know, who have been my former students, and now they are giving back to the community. That keeps me grounded. And also from the institutions, I mean, the district itself, and also the school board, who has always been supportive of the equity work that we do as a district. So thank you. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and try to go through, you know, this little presentation in which I'm gonna try to, you know, share the equity work that we are currently doing and the direction in which we're trying to go as a district as far as the equity work goes. So obviously, it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to, you know, execute the equity work with efficiency. It is really important that we remain together as a community, and that's what's happening here in Forest Grove, and that's why I love this responsibility. However, we need to understand that diversity includes knowing how diminished we all are when voices go unheard. As we, you know, address the issue of equity, not only in the individual schools, but also as a district, we recognize and we all agree on a number of things. There is already an achievement gap. there is an opportunity gap. There is an accessibility gap. There is a worthiness gap. And there is a need for social and emotional learning and interventions nationwide, especially in the middle of a crisis that we're living right now. And some of these gaps are really well known, and there are some that we haven't really spoken a lot about, like the worthiness gap, which is what kids experience after they have internalized, that they are not worth the same as other kids. There is a reality that students, they do not have the same access. And as you take a look at the picture at the bottom of this screen, we have evolved a lot in the equity work, growing for what we consider a reality in which not all kids have the same, then going into equality in which we give every kid the same. And then we're trying to move the equity work into equity, which means giving every child what they deserve to be successful. And even going forward, which is bringing the kids to the liberation stage in which we not only give each one of them what they need to be successful, but we also remove the fence, which symbolizes removing all the barriers. So equity in education requires putting systems in place that ensure that every child has an equal opportunity for success. And that requires understanding the unique challenges, the barriers faced by individual students or by population of students, and providing that additional support to help them overcome those barriers. And we all understand that, yet hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. Something happening here, so I'm gonna share again. Yet we have, the data that is right there in front of us. The data that you're taking a look right now, that's the last SBAC assessments. And you can tell right there in orange, the students of color continue to perform at lower levels as their counterparts. And this is in Forest Grove. So even though, in spite of all the effort, in spite of the acknowledgement and the awareness, we still have some work to do. So that's kind of what grounds our work. So today, I'm gonna present 4 bullet points to you in how we are addressing this issue. The first one is gonna talk about the action plan for the Forest Grove School District equity work. The second one is gonna talk about the structure of the Forest Grove School District equity team, because this work cannot be done in isolation and cannot be done by one individual. There is a system, there is a community that tries to execute it. The third one are the main equity experiences and trainings that we have provided to all staff members. And the last one is the current focus, what we're trying to accomplish right now. So here is the action plan. There are 11 main points that could describe that component. The first one, developing a comprehensive district equity policy that will serve as an anchor of the equity work district-wide. We have been working on this equity policy for a while, and we are almost there. I know that we are in contact with the school board, with some members of the school board to take a look at it. So we are very excited about that we finally arrived there. Number 2, providing equitable access to culturally responsive teaching strategies and curriculum. That is essential. That is something we have been working for a while, and we continue to educate our teachers on that. Number 3, addressing the social and emotional learning, including pairing equity standards and SEL, which stands for social and emotional learning standards. This is something really new that we are really advancing on. The next 4, examining policies, programs, and professional development with the equity lens and through the culture cycle, which is the work that we have been doing with Dr. Stephanie Freiberg for the last 4 to 5 years. Number 2 here on this slide, committing to diversifying the school personnel to enhance equitable representation, which is what our Director of Human Resources and the team presented a few minutes ago. The next one, ensuring that our schools are safe and there is a commitment to identity safety. The last one on this page, including the voices of our community, especially students and parents who represent marginalized populations. We are also working diligently on embracing and supporting both multiculturalism and bilingual education. We gotta bridge the accessibility gap. We need to eliminate the predictability of social and educational outcomes, especially based on race, and then maximizing the academic achievement of every child by intentionally allocating resources equitably. So that's almost our mission and vision. That's the plan. And here is the structure of the equity team that is trying to execute it. So we have a top layer of what we consider the district equity leadership team. This is led by our superintendent. And that's one of the things that I appreciate the most, is having our superintendent, at the forefront of all these initiatives. Then the new equity coordinator, which is me, and a few district equity leaders, and that includes administrators and also, some teachers and some other staff representing a variety of schools and grade levels. Then below that, we have the district equity team. That district equity team is formed by about 50 individuals. And those individuals are coming from the different schools. They get together, they receive training, and they are the ones who come to the schools and execute the work at the school level or site level. Those 50 individuals are divided in 5 specific committees. One committee is addressing the expanding cultural toolkits, which is the work that Stephanie Fiber have been leading for us. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about all these categories in the next slide, but I kind of wanted to explain that a little bit. The number B would be diversifying the workforce and affinity groups. The diversifying the workforce committee has already been presented by Kevin. The affinity groups, we can tell you right now that we have 5 affinity groups right now currently working in the Forest Grove School District. We have 2 BIPOC affinity groups, one that is open to any BIPOC member of the district, and one that is only for the equity district leadership. They also have their own BIPOC affinity group. We have 2 white staff members affinity group, one for male and one for female. And we also are in the making of having an LGBTQ plus BIPOC, affinity group that will also meet. These affinity groups are meeting at very least once a month. In addition to that, we have a coalition of white educators, and they are called the BARWE, that stands for Building Anti-Racist White Educators. We have a couple of those teams. One is at NEMS, and the other one is being formed at EchoShaw or by EchoShaw leaders that are trying to get that work rolling also in other parts of the district. And then finally, at the very bottom, we have the district side teams, and these are the schools, because every school has its own equity team that executes the equity work at that level. So going into details, expanding the cultural toolkit, what this is talking about, the main work here is that the understanding of culture is important in order to teach the child in an equitable manner. I mean, understanding the growth mindset, understanding that we have to rely on the asset that the student brings rather than the deficit mindset, that we need to exercise interpretive power, that we need to not only be independent learners, but also interdependent learners, and a number of other important components that come with this fiber work. B, we already talked about diversifying the workforce and the affinity group. So it is important to develop this framework that supports the social and emotional well-being of all staff, specifically taking into consideration the needs of the staff of color, those who, with either visible or non-visible identity markers. The third one is the equity professional development. We have a team that is in charge of collecting resources, looking around and finding what is a great workshop that is needed, what is the speaker that we could bring into the district, how to collaborate internally, how can we use our own brain power and skill sets that we have in certain buildings and utilize that to provide services in other buildings. The next one, we also have a committee, and the name of this committee is the School Board and Community Development. The importance of this one is to do what we're doing right now, which is sharing the why of the equity work, making sure that the superintendent is able to lead this work and communicate not only with the school board, but also with the community, all the cultural experiences that are authentic and that are currently happening within our district. And then the last committee, and also part of the vision, is the student and family voice. I mean, we cannot continue to work in isolation, thinking what is best for our community or what is best for our kids without listening to the kids or the community. So here are the main equity trainings and experiences that we have provided to our staff. And some of them are either trainings that happen cyclically during the year or throughout the year, and some of them are in specific training that have happened in certain buildings. So we can talk about the work that Dr. Fiber has done, which is expanding the cultural kits. We have taken a number of staff members. I mean, at this point, we're probably more close to 100 staff members who have attended, taken it up. We have taken staff members to Beyond Diversity, also Coaching for Educational Equity, CFE. We have sent there a number of staff members, including almost 100% of our administrators. We have a couple of staff members who have been trained with the National Equity Project, including myself. We every year take a number of staff members to the AWALA conference, which Kevin referenced a few minutes ago. We have done extensive work with microaggressions, implicit bias, ACE or adverse childhood experiences, teaching for social justice, teaching culturally responsive teaching, gender equity and inclusion, and we have already talked about affinity groups, restorative justice, and then white fragility, white privilege, on the merits or based on guilt versus responsibility. It's not anybody's fault what happened. But however, we have the responsibility to make a change. I mean, we have been talking about the importance of educating and supporting not only the staff of color, but also white staff, because they also care about our kids and they need to be supported and empowered to do the best job possible under the circumstances that we are in. Nationwide, the statistics are that 40% of the students are students of color, and 17% of them, 17% of the teachers and administrators are teachers of administrators of color. We are, as Kevin mentioned earlier, above that. So we should feel good as a district that we are doing better than national statistics, but still we need to continue to grow in that area. So what is the current focus? What we need to get done before the school year is over, or hopefully before the fall, is we need to make sure that we finalize our comprehensive district equity policy. We gotta bring the affinity groups to a conclusion and examine the learning and see how we can continue to grow in that area, depending on the experiences that we gather from the 5 affinity groups that we have currently working this year. We also need to continue the anti-racism work that we have been doing in some of the schools. We gotta make sure that we complete the pairing of the equity and SEL standards, which we have already started working in that area. There is even a grant that we are applying for that is going to be supporting that initiative. We got to continue to work on identity safety, on gender equity. We need to continue to work on, empowering our teachers with the understanding of culture and the importance that it has in being, in having an effective instruction. And then obviously the cultural responsive teaching and the teaching for social justice, which is something we need to continue to work on. So in pursuit of equity, these are the 10 main topics that we recommend. Challenge the normalization of failure. Speak up for equity. Embrace immigrant students and their cultures. Provide students clear guidance on what it takes to be successful. And also show what does success look like for them. Building partnerships with parents based on shared interest. Align discipline practices to educational goals. Rethink remediation while focusing on acceleration. Implement evidence-based practices and evaluate for effectiveness, which is all this data analysis process. Build partnerships with community organizations and empower inclusion of BIPOC success. And teach the way students learn best according to their cultural experiences, rather than expecting them to learn the way we teach. So this presentation continues, but I'm going to stop right here because whatever I have following this slide are probably answers to potential questions. So I'm just going to stop right there and allow the board to ask the necessary questions they have in mind. Thank you.
And my plan here would be to have Oz come back. This was meant to mostly just be an introduction. There's a lot of work going on in the district, and I just wanted to make sure folks knew a little bit more about how it was organized. And in particular, that one slide that kind of talks about how we've organized the work, that to me is the really important slide, because in most of the districts I've been in, equity has been a very much a top-down kind of endeavor. And this district, when I got here, had a really decentralized way of dealing with equity. And it's one that we've tried to keep as we've begun to build on it. So I just mostly wanted Oz to come and provide kind of an introductory of here's how we're organizing the work. There's a lot of work going on, and begin to give you, we'll come back with more details if you need, but then I'd throw it over to questions.
I have a question.
This is Narcy. I have just a quick question. And it sounds like, thank you, Osvaldo, for a great presentation. That's a lot of information. So one is I kind of like to see where, and you did mention in one of the slides about the data collection, but I guess I would like to maybe dig a little bit more in regards to what does that data look like? And Dr. Parker and I've had this conversation in regards to collecting a reporting system that our students and our parents and actually any stakeholder within the school district could have, and how to report a bias, how to report a hate incident within the school district. So the mechanism of actually putting policies and procedures in place to have that take place, because we don't necessarily have that sorted out yet, in regards to something a LGBTQ student might be addressing, second language, special ed, so forth and so on. And then the other thing was when you refer to evidence-based practice. So I wanted to know, maybe not at this time, but maybe later on, does that evidence-based practice, is that in relation to the ethnic studies? What is that going to look like? What's the plan for that for the district? Because that will be something that will be coming our way. So for me, it's mainly process and procedures that would actually change the culture of the district to make it better. So I don't need answers this particular time. I just wanted to put it out there as something that I'm very interested in.
I appreciate that.
And I'll talk about it when I talk about my report on superintendent goals. We'll present out more data to you the next board meeting around. It'll be close to when you have to fill out my evaluation. So I wanted to make sure you had some data. I'll have Oz work with John a little bit around seeing our data is really sketchy right now because we don't have all of the, all of the data that we would normally have, but we're going to bring you what we can. But I do think this idea of making sure that we're breaking it up so that you can see how different groups are performing. But that's going to come this next board meeting. We'll bring that. But I also wrote down this idea. I will talk to Oz around the issue around hate and bias reporting. And then the ethnic studies, I'll have John put together a project on how are we moving forward with that. And I'm sure Oz will be involved with that too. But I wrote both of those down.
Thank you very much. The presentation was very good. When you're putting this together, and I've talked to Dave about this, when you talk about culturally responsive teaching social justice, are you looking at also adding classes? Because I see the students, I think that we should have more information about how to debate, pro and con, how to debate with kids, regardless if it's race or social justice and that, because kids don't have the extended families like they should to do that. And if you can take an argument and debate it, whether it's pro or con, regardless of what you think. So I'm looking at, are you going to, from all of the work you're doing, recommending, beginning with kindergarten, debate, and how do you have a discussion? And also, that thought left my brain.
I think the other part of that was some civics, right?
Right. Civics.
Right.
Yeah, because I think in the culture that we're in right now, I'm really concerned that we can go forward with a lot of equity, but I also think that we have to help where we're at right now, the children, because they don't have the tools on how to discuss something without, having misinformation or calling names or just not understanding. So I would like to see some curriculum flow out of this to help the children.
Yeah, Kate, sorry.
No, I want to say thank you. Very good presentation.
I just wanted to say that you are absolutely right. And I know for a fact that in some elementary schools, definitely at Neil Armstrong, the middle school and the high school, teachers have been empowered with those tools, especially in schools that have advisory classes. And in the context of the election and all of that, there have been a lot of debates going on. But you are absolutely right that we have to teach kids how to have conversations, how to debate their points without being disrespectful or offensive to one another. And it has been a very good experience in those schools that we have put it into practice. So how to bring it down to lower levels, that's something that we could discuss. And I'm pretty sure that your intuition is right, that we can, sometimes we don't give kids the credit. And if we teach them the skills, they will learn the skills. So I appreciate you bringing that comment, because I know it has happened. but I am certain it has happened at the, with the older kids. I'm not really sure we have done the best job possible at the elementary level.
And I would just say thank you, Osvaldo, thanks for the presentation. It was great. And that last slide that you showed, maybe it was 10 items that you can do. It was really kind of nice. It kind of encapsulated quite a bit of a lot of things that just are real quick one line things that people can, that you can throw out to focus on if you're going to, for folks that want to address this, right? And all of us. And so I really appreciated that. Was your last slide, tons of information, but that one was great. So thanks very much.
I was told 20 minutes, so I tried to stay to the clock. I think that Brad had a question, but I'm not sure.
I think the only thing I would say, when you're looking at the strategic part of that plan, is to be able to think about, whenever you put a strategy together, think about how to quantify that strategy, and then baseline that strategy about where we are right now. So it's real concrete and not soft. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've seen our work over the last 20 years, and it's kind of moved from person to person. And it's nice to see something that's quantifiable, concrete, and that it's real clear on what success looks like. When you implement that strategy, this is what we should see. And it's even more effective, and when you articulate, this is what we should see from our kids. So at some level, that would be my suggestion, Osvaldo.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Brad.
Okay. Thanks, Osvaldo. I think with that, we will close out the work session for this evening and move into the school board meeting. So we'll close the work session. I don't know, looks like it's 6:38 p.m. And I think we'll just go right into the school board meeting. So I'll call the March 29, 2021 Forest Grove School District Board of Directors meeting is called to order at 6:38 p.m. We'll do a roll call of board members present. Mark Everett, board chair, present. Kate Grandusky.
Present.
Brad Bafaro.
Yes.
Narce Rodriguez.
Present.
And Valerie Ingram.
Here.
And then also Miley Vernon.
Here.
Miley's here. Yeah. Okay. Let's so the school board will hear public comment for unscheduled public appearance received through the designated email address, which is publiccomment@fgsd.k12.or.us and is on the district website. Comments will be read by district staff at the appropriate time on the agenda and will be limited to 3 minutes. Let's see. This time, would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Introductions of audience and staff. Can I ask the audience and staff to introduce themselves here this evening?
John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent.
Kevin Noreen, Director of Human Resources.
Kim Scherer, Director of Student Services.
David Warner, Communications.
Enrique Piñon, Technology Manager.
Eileen Clute, Business.
Okay, I think that's everyone. Okay. Let's see.
We
We
still have
move
two left there. I think we have Arnolfo.
on. Okay, sorry.
Arnulfo Martinez, CTE teacher at the high school.
Okay.
And Karen O'Neill, principal at the high school.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. Let's see, approval of tonight's agenda. Can I
I
get a
move
motion?
that we approve tonight's agenda as written.
Second,
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comment? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. Marce Rodriguez,
Yes.
Val Ingram,
Yes.
Brad Bafero,
Yes.
Kate,
yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay. So the next item is a student representative report, and I don't know, Riley was here earlier.
Can you hear me?
She's there. You just didn't hear her
Okay,
say here.
okay, great, great.
Okay. So yeah, I have a little less today because of spring break and everything. But our athletics committee, they have all the games on our Viking Nation app. Class competition, they always do a competition of the month, and for April, that's our sophomores doing it, and they're going to work with outreach and most likely do a hygiene drive, but they're pretty positive about that. Clubs and connections, they're finalizing freshman orientation and preparing for that. They're also working with social media to make the ASB website and just make sure that's up and running. They're also working with Unified in our ASB to make sure everything is good with them and just doing weekly checkups. And they're thinking of doing sometime this week or next week a unified check-in with all of them just to make sure everything's going okay. Our legal group is doing ASB elections and appointments, which elections are going on right now. Our outreach team, they are working on doing meaningful Mondays, and I'm pretty sure they have that all done. And then also they're working on their monthly project. For productions, they are working to do an ASB training on the student council, and so they're working with our legal team and then our ASB president right now to make that. They're also finishing the transitions and putting more resources on the mental health video that they are creating. For publicity and recognition, they're partnering with Renaissance for this drive-in thing. I'm not positive what exactly it is, but it's a drive-in to something. And then they're also doing yard signs for the Senior Hall of Fame and just getting those polished up and ready to go off to our seniors. But they're also helping with the mental health video with outreach. Social media, they're just getting information out about elections, spirit weeks, and then the scavenger hunt that Renaissance is putting on. They're also just making sure and putting more links onto the ASB website. Our Spirit and Rewards, they're planning a Spirit Week, and they're planning one for the April 5th through 9th. And then they're figuring out how to get things ordered and figuring out what they're going to order. And then our esports group, they're brainstorming advertising for esports and getting more players and more people involved. They're also doing maintenance and just making sure everything's going smoothly and planned out. And then they're also figuring out streaming. And then I didn't get anything from Renaissance today, but I know that they are probably getting the scavenger hunt like polished up and ready to go, which is going to be on Wednesday. And that's all I have today.
Thank you. That was actually quite a bit, Miley. So you're very thorough in your report. So thanks. There's a ton going on. So thanks very much. Okay, moving on. Let's see, correspondence and celebrations, calendar notes. recognition and the superintendent report. Mr. Parker.
Thanks. I'm going to do a return to school update. So I'll save a lot of my kind of current comments. But the first thing I just wanted to talk about today was how great it was to see cars in the school parking lots today. And to know that today was pre-K 6, teachers began to move back into their classrooms, and the schools had meetings and met. There's some training that's going on, and also just seeing the schools be reinvigorated. It was, I called all the principals today at one time or another and talked to most of the elementary school late in the day just to find out how their day went. And everybody said the energy was great. Just having folks in the building. Several of them reported it felt a lot like in-service week in August, like lots of excitement kind of getting going. Lots of questions around the latest changes in the Ready School Safe Learners. I'll talk about that in our presentation. But all in all, it was it's good. It's starting to feel like school again, and we're just excited to welcome students back to our schools soon. So that's about it.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, next item is unscheduled public appearance. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. Public comments should be submitted through the designated email address and will be read by district staff. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as is the protocol during in-person board meetings. Public criticism or complaints about school district personnel is not allowed at this time. Are there any comments that have been received?
No comments.
Okay, thanks very much. We moved on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent items a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'll do a roll call vote here. So I am a yes. Brad Bafero.
I'm a yes.
Narce Rodriguez.
Yes.
Valerie Ingram.
Yes.
And Kate Grandusky.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. We have two presentations this evening. The first is superintendent goals from Mr. Parker, and then a return to school update he mentioned earlier also. So I believe the first one is a superintendent goals update, Mr. Parker.
Perfect. Let me share this and then get my screen set up here. So this starts, hang on. This starts kind of the next 3 or 4 board meetings, the superintendent evaluation. This time around, I'm going to give you an update on where we're at with the superintendent goals this year. The next board meeting, I'll give you kind of my self-evaluation, and you'll be, I think, giving me an executive session, the feedback from the surveys you sent out. So we're starting into that process, and this is kind of the beginning of it. You know, last March and in the summer, as we began to kind of figure out what my goals were going to be, it's interesting as I started to try and write this up and give you some feedback on how I did this year with these goals. It's just amazing how much has changed in this year. Originally, we had 3 goals. The first one was develop and implement plans moving the district from comprehensive distance learning to the hybrid model, and then return the school district to in-person instruction at all schools. And that was back in September. And thinking at that time, the way that we envisioned kind of how that was going to happen, a lot of that's changed. The second goal was update and implement the strategic plan. We suspended that back in November, just because of we could see the writing on the wall that we weren't going to get to that work with just what was going on. The last one is enact systemic change for our historically marginalized students. I think you got a good indication of kind of the work that's going on from Osvaldo, what we're doing as a district earlier, but I'll go through kind of what we wrote up and talk through what we've achieved. Before I get there, as I was starting to put this together, I was trying to figure out, you'll see in a second when I go to what we wrote up in September, like some of it is moot. It's the things changed on us. And so I began to, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how many changes we've had this year since March. And so I started writing up all of the different changes that happened to us this year. I'm not going to go through and read every single one of these, but you know, in June we had done kind of the spring CDL, and we were off and rolling on developing hybrid plans. And we spent the month of July very intentionally with blueprint committees coming through and kind of creating these hybrid plans. And then at the end of the month, the governor and OHA threw one of the first big changes at us, which is, okay, everybody's going to CDL. Okay, we start school in 4 weeks and you have to be ready for that. In July, COVID cases began to surge. And so through August and September, we began to see this very large surge in cases. We received new executive orders. We began to meet weekly with the Washington County SUPs to try and make sense of the changes and the speed that these things were coming at us. In September, we deal with the wildfires, some as close as Cherry Grove. And then we have the beginning of an even larger wave of COVID cases coming at us. In October, the state announces that they're going to re-examine the metrics. And then October 30th, they release new updated metrics. And then they changed the way in November, the way they calculate those metrics, the positivity rates, and had to change them again. December, the governor announces on December 23rd that all of the metrics are advisory. They aren't mandatory anymore. And then in February, she announces that those metrics are changed again, and now they are mandatory. You must follow those pieces. And I'm kind of, I see people smiling, and I think it's just a recognition of kind of the year that we've been in and how much change we've undergone. And it was even last week when CDC made through looking at science, it's not an arbitrary decision that they made, but they've changed the requirement around social distancing from 6 feet or 35 square feet now to 3 feet. And there's some reasons, but again, that came on us during vacation when no one was at school. And so again, it's just been a real challenging year with how many times we've stopped and started. So this was goal one. Goal one was basically get a hybrid plan developed and get our schools to enact it. And we had created at the time kind of 5 or 6 different parts to it. First one was convene a team to finalize hybrid planning. So this was completed, but again, it evolved, which is instead of having that kind of blueprint committee doing all of the work, over time, we kind of evolved. I mean, we just changed the way we did the work. In the end, as we started to move back towards the hybrid, we brought together about 50 licensed teachers who were K through 6th grade. And they did a lot of the initial piloting and kind of looking at what that instructional model was going to be like. But the work that we did during the summer, we kind of just took it and continued to go with it as far as like the systems in the schools that we needed to organize and that bit. So while that made sense when I made this, I'm not sure at the end that's kind of how we did the work. Create a plan that outlines the metrics and timing for transitioning to hybrid. Again, at the time, this felt like a really important goal, but in the end, the metrics kept changing so much that it wasn't really, we just had to follow basically what the governor put out. Where we're at, I'm going to go through it when I do my reporting, but they've changed the metrics again. with this last order, and I'll explain it. But boy, it's been a challenge, right? To create a plan that keeps changing. Communicate the hybrid transition plan to the staff and the community. So what I would say here is that I think we've completed that. We've done that through our board. I've communicated weekly, every week since March, trying to keep everyone up to speed with kind of what we're doing. And in hindsight, I think there's probably some different things that I might have done, but all in all, this has felt like the best way for us to make sure that everyone knows where we're at this point. I think we've been pretty honest about, I mean, we've many times announced what we were going to do and then announced that we have to change what we're doing. We might have waited to announce, but that still didn't always feel like the best move here. Develop measures for evaluating progress on students in the CDL program. I'll have John, we're going to come through and present to you, I think in the next board meeting, so that you have some data with which to analyze my performance. But I'll also tell you that our data is very challenging right now because we don't have a lot of different pieces to analyze. So, but we'll present that the next board meeting. Communicate the progress on CDL and how we are doing. We've done that in some extent with attendance, but again, I think that's been problematic for us. That wouldn't be one that I feel like I have a strong, that we've had strong performance on. Convene a team to finalize the in-person instruction for all students. Again, I think the vision of this changed. We did do this by bringing together teachers and actually having them try out the different modes of instruction that we were looking at. Create a plan that outlines the metrics and the timing for transitioning to full in-person. We're still kind of working on this one. The way it's looking right now, and I'll talk about it in the next place, is certainly I'm looking at the fall as being full in-person instruction. We're gonna wait and see where the right transition place is between now and that beginning of the year. Certainly, if we can get kids in school, pre-K through 6, I don't know, there's some challenges still. I'm gonna wait till my other presentation to talk through that. Communicate the in-person transition plan to staff in the community. We did this through the board meetings in our multiple week-long, our Friday communications, that kind of thing. But that's goal 1. I don't know if you have questions here, and then I'll move on to kind of the equity piece.
I don't have any questions, Dave, other than to comment that I think all of us recognize just the number of changes that there have been this year and how difficult it has been to, it's almost which goal, which month, or should there be a new goal? It's changed so much. So, that's just my comment.
I will say the positive part here, I was having a conversation with a teacher last week, and there's lots of positive things coming out of this too, which is our use of technology and some of the things we're doing and how are we going to move forward. So I don't want to say it's all negative, because I think we've overcome and adapted, but certainly it's been a challenge to manage the process. Brad.
I just have a comment, David, regarding this process that we go through for evaluation. In this situation, I would look at this more of a reflection on what worked and what didn't work and what did we learn from it. And if we, as a superintendent, if you ever had to go, knock on wood, if you ever had to go through this again, you would be better, you would be more apt to follow a path that and learn from it than you were at the beginning of this year. And I think that's a positive piece of going through a process like this. Just the ability to reflect on the things that you've done, the things that worked, things that didn't work, and what would you do different next time. Not only as a superintendent, but as a district. That would be my only comment.
And I'll be writing that up for our next meeting with my self-evaluation. So I'll take that. Yep. The other thing I would say, just coming off of that, is just, one of the things that we realized as we've gone through is all of the various, like my Washington County superintendents folks, we meet weekly, and in these times of change, collaborating has been the real blessing. And our principals meet weekly to talk through, because the problems and the changes are happening so quickly that being together to collaborate around it, that's a real positive thing. And hopefully we won't have so many changes and we won't need those meetings, but that has been part of the strength. In goal 3, these were kind of the action steps for me in trying to lead this equity movement, especially in this time of, in the pandemic and everybody's via a screen. How do we continue to move forward our equity work? The action steps for me, and sure, all educators have an understanding of the role we play in systemic racism. This started last spring with, actually before last spring, we were talking about this, but specifically in the work that we've been doing, each of the schools meets with their staffs monthly. So their school equity team meets and works on these basic elements. This is one of the things we tasked them with in the fall. It's something that we'll be working on, that we have worked on, and that we will continue to work on, is making sure that people understand there is a systemic racism issue here, and we have to create systems to fix it. I'm really proud that Oz was here. Getting someone, he's already been invaluable to me, which is my attention gets split in a lot of different ways. And just having Oz there to continue to lead the process forward and make sure that we've got an agenda for the meeting and things are moving, it's already been really helpful. I mean, I have a pretty good vision for what I'm looking for. And I know, again, like I said, I came into a really decentralized organization as far as the leadership and equity. So I don't really need to do, there's plenty of people in the organization who are much more skilled at this than I am. I just need to put them in the right spot to do the work. District equity teams expand the knowledge of identity, safety, interpretive power, and how the culture cycle, which are 3 base pieces of knowledge that we're using to kind of connect. It's like, how do we create classrooms and instruction that are going to teach equity? And this is the work that Stephanie Freiberg, Dr. Freiberg, and the University of Michigan team, I think there's some, one of the researchers there is from Stanford too, but this is the work that we've been doing for about 4 years now. And it's how does equity show up in a classroom? How do we teach identity safety? How do we give kids interpretive power? I'll bring Oz back to actually, this is all information that we need to present to you. I wanted to give you today kind of structure, but the next time around, we'll bring in some of the other folks from the equity team to talk a little bit more around these 3 subject areas. But again, our monthly equity school meetings, this is where they're doing that work, where they continue to talk about these subjects. Create a behavioral health and wellness framework that supports every student. This is interesting because it feels like if you didn't know the work that we were working on, like you'd look at that and go, why is this in this goal? Why is this sitting in the equity goal? Well, part of the reason is both Cassie Kenny and Oz, as they began to talk through the work that we're doing on social emotional learning and the work that we're doing on equity, there's a huge overlap. And it's not that we're doing one or the other, it's we have to do both at once. And it's kind of some new work at Owala. The main keynote speech was around this idea that if you don't think in terms of equity when you do social emotional learning, you can really do trauma to our students of color. And so it's important that when we create the system that they're both there. So this is actually moving ahead well. We've got the behavioral health and wellness framework coming together. Oz has been working with Cassie to try and get some overlap there. And they're going to do this as we begin to create equity standards. They're going to actually kind of co-create social emotional learning and equity standards together. So that's just one thing for us. So it's been really exciting work. Convene a team to begin to look at systemic underperformance and put together suggestions what systems need to be changed to provide positive impact. This is still work to be done. There's been some conversations. I think it's some of what the work that you're looking for in RSA. But as we begin to really dig into our systems, we need to identify which ones are working well for us and which ones aren't. That's still work that I think is really out in front of me. And that's questions that I can answer on that goal.
Dr. Parker, thank you for sharing these goals, these and the one previously. Are there any cost association with all of these? Just wondering.
There is. I mean, I have a, currently the money sits in my budget. We'll be moving it to Oz's so that he has money surrounding kind of our equity efforts. Typically we've used, it's $40,000 or $50,000 that we have for paying for teacher time to do the work. If we do any kind of trainings, the affinity group work, we've brought in some outside facilitators to work with our facilitators so that we can build capacity in the organization, but we didn't have that capacity originally. So we wanted to both build and support it. But we have those resources that we're using. I'll need to continue to kind of build these resources. We've got money sitting in HR to do some of the pathway work that we talked about in the first part of this board meeting, because again, there's some costs associated with some of those pieces. Yeah. Did I answer that question? I thought I was headed that way, but.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just trying to gauge the support that will be needed to do this work. And it does take dollars, in particular, if there's any software systems that might need to be purchased from technology and possibly others, you know, just wondering. But yes, you did.
The software part will actually be the one that we've already purchased. So the Panorama, which we'll be using for our behavioral health and wellness, will also provide us the data that we're needing to track this behavioral health and wellness piece.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Let's see.
It's me again.
Onto the school opening update, I guess.
I wanted to just kind of next Monday at this time, we'll have been through our first full school day for pre-K through 5th grade. Wanted to kind of give you an update of where we're at. You kind of heard what the basic plans are. Wanted to give you kind of where we're at COVID-wise, and they haven't updated their graph yet, but basically the last 2 weeks have been 89, and then I just got news before we came onto this board meeting that we're at 89 again. So I think we've leveled off here over the last 5 weeks, and there's maintaining a good area. This graph is actually the old metrics, which show us to be in the from basically in the yellow from 200 and below. And I'm going to show you in just a second, those metrics have changed. And again, the 200 line here is what's going to change. Everything below it is basically going to be green. And I'll show you what that is in a little bit. And if you have questions as we're moving along, go ahead and ask away. So here's kind of where we're at. Portable air cleaners, which was the purchase from our last time around. Those are, we've purchased. Now we're just trying to get them all delivered. There's deliveries coming in tomorrow, and we're still kind of checking through to make sure that we can still make all of this happen. K6, April 5th is the target. They've changed the cohorting requirement so that the 100 doesn't really matter anymore. The metrics have changed. This is the new set of metrics. And basically what it says is below 200, you have to offer either fully on-site or a hybrid option. I met with most of the Washington County superintendents, and I think everybody is basically planning on opening April 5th with the plans that they put together over the last 2 months. And so I don't see anybody, because of this change in cohorting and then the change in the social distancing, I don't see anybody who's moving quickly on that. We've spent a bunch of time getting a plan together to make a change 4 or 5 days in front of the opening. Just doesn't make any sense at this point. But basically, to go back to our graph here, it's 200 or less. You need to be both elementary and secondary should be in a hybrid or fully at school. And I think you can see we're a long ways away from 200. So I think this is good. I mean, I want to see kids back in school. So I think this is a move that's positive for us. The 6-foot social distancing guideline has changed. The basic gist, the science that I presented the last time around that talked about the key factors in a classroom in inhaled dose. And the key factors there are, one, the mask. It has 84% removes 84% of the risk. And then the airflow is those are really the big factors. And the number of students that are in it, I've attached on the very last screen here, I've actually attached kind of a link to their science. So if you want to see the different scientific articles that they're citing here, but the basic gist is the number of students in the room doesn't seem to be as big of a variable as the airflow and the mask. And so that's why they're making the change to go back to 3 feet. They're not seeing the kind of transmission in school. It doesn't mean that we're not going to see COVID cases in our schools. I think we will. We already are, and we have been. It's just that they're coming from outside. What they're not seeing is the spread happening inside of the school if we've taken the precautions that we need to take. There's a lot of writing here, but this is them explaining the 3-foot rule. And the basic gist is elementary schools must maintain 3 feet of physical distance between students to the maximum extent possible. So that's in all cases. So basically, even if you went above the 200, you would still, the 3-foot rule in the elementary school still is okay. At the middle and high school, if you are below 200, then you have a 3-foot rule. If you get above 200, then it goes back to the 6-foot rule. Bigger bodies, I think, is what they're basically talking about there. But the problem is, it's not written down here. What we're hearing so far and where we're struggling right now is even in the middle and high school, where you could have 3-foot of distance between kids, when you get into the hallways and into lunch nutrition spaces, they need to be 6 feet. And so that's gonna be some thinking on our part about how to manage the passings and some of those types of things. So kind of my next steps here. K6 teachers are continuing to move into their classrooms today, tomorrow, the next day. Principals are fine-tuning the systems at their school. We've still, how we're working with Washington County Health is changing because we have a lot more people in our schools now. So our contact tracing and kind of working through all those systems is evolving. I'll start to reconvene our kind of our negotiations with our licensed and our classified groups. Moving to a 3-foot space is a change in the working conditions, so I'm going to need to renegotiate And so I'll start meeting with them and talking, finding out what the issues are and start moving towards this. I would like to get to a place where we're getting kids in 4 days a week. There's still a lot of challenges that are still in front of me with the rules that we're up against to make that happen. But I'll start meeting with those groups to start figuring out how to move forward for us. We'll continue to kind of monitor and learn. We've got something new we're going to try out here next week, so I'm sure there's a lot of learning going to happen there.
Dave, what
I
about
would hope. Go ahead.
What about busing for the kids, and how are we managing that?
Busing is still a challenge for us in the rules that we're given right now, which is 3 feet of space and only kids in the same family can be in the same seats. And I don't know, and Eileen probably has these rules a little better than I do, but the basic gist is this: we're not able to transport a full bus of kids. And so we're already kind of running up against some capacity issues of trying to get even the kids that are coming back to school to school. So we've got some real challenges there. And I'll just, again, airflow. I think we could host more kids in a bus, get the windows open. With the windows open, it's like close to 15 air changes per hour. With a mask, I think those kids are actually in less of an issue, but we've got some challenges. I see Eileen coming on the screen, so she probably has a couple of thoughts for us.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kate. There's recommendations in the RSSL that we have, 1 kid per seat and maintain the distance, but it's not a requirement. With us in routing, our goal is to ensure there's 1 kid per seat unless they're the same household. And then siblings can sit together or members of the same household can sit together so that we maximize that bus. We have some buses, they just finished routing and they're working on trying to balance them. We do still have some buses that are going to be, 1 student per seat and siblings are sitting together. And, it's going to be challenging to maintain that, especially as students start to continue to come back. If families, are saying they're maintaining in CDL right now, and then they continue to kind of filter back in, then we might have to make some busing adjustments.
Eileen, how are we communicating to the parents, and are we asking them, are your kids coming? And I mean, that must be really logistics, a nightmare to figure out what parents are sending their kids and what parents are not.
Yeah, it is. The buildings are working really hard on, contacting all the families and trying to find out who's maintaining in CDL and who's coming back into a hybrid. And then those that are coming back into a hybrid, we are going to route them as long as they're outside of the walk boundary. And then just encourage, if families want to bring their kids to school instead of ride the bus, that's, just ensures there's more capacity for others that can't.
Thank you.
Question about what does lunch look like?
Lunch.
So
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was going to say currently we're not really doing lunch. So that's part of this issue. To get to the 4 days, we've got to figure out kind of how to manage that space.
Do we know what other districts have done for lunch in terms of number of students in the building?
So most of the districts are doing kind of the grab and go, or they're doing the half day, like Beaverton's running half the students in the morning and the other half in the afternoon because of this lunch piece is kind of in the middle. John, do you have any?
Yeah, part of the Lippy hybrid pilot group was to pilot breakfast in the classroom, which was very a point of nervousness for some teachers, but we've identified best practice in how to eat in the classroom. So at Tom McCall will be doing that. In terms of lunch, it's grab and go. So they get they'll get 2 bags. one bag in the morning for eating in the classroom when they come on campus, and a second bag for grab and go. So Eileen, correct me if I'm wrong, but on Tuesdays, they would receive the days that they are not in person attending school. And so kids would receive multiple breakfast and lunches on Tuesday that are part of cohort A. And on Friday, they would receive multiple meals as well for those that are in person. But Kate, to answer your question about transportation and those kids, every school has put out a parent survey and a parent presentation. And at Tom McCall, we called every parent in Spanish or in English to follow up to see what their choice was. And even those that said no, we wanted to go ahead and follow up as well. So we're expecting about 60% coming back. And what's interesting is over spring break, we had multiple messages left for the staff that called prior to spring break saying parents have changed their mind. They want to go ahead and experiment with, hybrid. So we hope to see more and more students returning. Also, we are going to, and have started already at Tom McCall, reaching out to those students that have left for charter school, online charter school programs, let them know that we're pivoting to hybrid and inviting them back, and that we're excited to get them back for the remainder of this year.
Can I clarify something real quick about the meal service? As far as meal services, since students are only going to be in the building 2 days a week, and we can provide meals for multiple days throughout the week, what they're doing instead of, they're doing more of a meal box. So if you go to school 2 days a week, then you get to pick up a 5-day meal box. But parents actually have to come and pick up those meals, and they can sign up for a reoccurring every week. So students that come on Monday and Tuesday, their families can pick up a 5-day meal box on Tuesday, and then Thursday and Friday groups can pick up the 5-day meal box on Friday. And then those that are staying in CDL, those families can pick up the 7-day meal box on Wednesdays. So we're trying to spread that out a little bit, but it's a full meal box. It's too much for kids to take home, especially if they're walkers or, just even on the bus. That's a lot of food that would be taken home. So it is going to be on a sign up. Today, I think, was the first cutoff date for the 7-day meal box starting next week. And so they'll keep getting families signed up for those.
So right now we are going to be on site. Kids are going to be on site. Well, at least 60% in most. Is that most buildings, John, or is that just yours?
That's just ours. But we've really done a conscientious effort in terms of reaching out to parents. And for our Spanish-speaking parents, we have employed Osvaldo, Martha Ochoa, and other bilingual staff to reach out and answer any questions or any misconceptions, as well as our English-speaking staff. And Dave was gracious enough to allow our CNI staff to come over with me to Tom McCall. So Julie Adams, my secretary, and others have called the English-speaking parents just to follow up for those that have said no or have asked for undecided, need additional information.
How many hours are they going to actually be in the building?
Yeah, that's a good question. In terms of, it's about 3.5 hours for Tom McCall. We at every level exceed the state blueprint instructional hours per week. And our middle school, high school, and Tom McCall far exceed them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, what about elementary? Are the kids there all day, or are they only there for a half a day?
They're there for a reduced day, and they're going to keep the same start time bell schedule. But the idea was to provide that grab and go lunch at the end of the day, and then they go home and they eat their meal, and then they join classes, counseling groups asynchronously in the afternoon. So when you add all that up together, our kids are getting some real instructional minutes.
So
I guess the issue that I see is that if you have kids like pre-kinder through 4th grade, that really breaks up the day for the parents. You know, if the parents want to go to work, who's going to pick up those kids at the bus stop? Yeah, it's a logistic problem.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'll reshare the presentation we gave several weeks ago that have these schedules in them, just so you can get a look at them again. But Kate, I will tell you that moving to a 4-day model would be a better thing for us down the road. So I'd like to try and solve some of the challenges we have to get to that place. That's what we're going to try, because of getting our kids in person learning is a much better place for us to be.
Yeah, I agree. I know some friends of ours that live up in Seattle, and they've just decided not to send their kids back because by the time the parents drive, they don't have busing. And by the time they drive them to school, then they have to turn around and go pick them up at lunchtime to bring them home. And they just said, well, they're not going to do it. And you know, they work, you know, so it's hard. I mean, it's just, yeah, it'd be nice to have the kids in school all day.
Yep. Any other questions that I can answer kind of about our return to school? We've got, you know, the one thing I didn't talk about is we've got a bunch of tech resources that we've purchased that are going out to schools. They're in the middle of delivering lots of that now. There'll still be monitors and stuff coming in the rest of this week. So it's been really busy out in our buildings, but those, we still look to be basically on schedule with that.
And then also, I just need to give a big shout out, you know, to Enrique Pinon in the technology department. I'm not sure he even sleeps, but he has done a phenomenal job. His entire team, you know, Eileen Clute with food service and custodial, and Kim with all the health protocols. It's been a real team effort. Kevin with staffing and Dave, you know, taking point. This is unprecedented times that we're seeing, and it's been a real team effort, and kudos to our teachers and staff. We're excited to get the kids back next week. We can't wait.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thanks. Next couple of items or action items on the agenda this evening. The first is a return to school date adjustment, and then the second one is looks like a purchase of a piece of equipment for Forest Grove High School. So the first one is Mr. Parker.
Yep. When we approved the changes to the calendar to get our kids back into school, we didn't change. We approved 2nd through 6th to start on April 12th, and now with the governor's order, they need to start on April 5th. So we just need to make this motion to fix that one part of what we were doing, so that both pre-K through 6 starts on April 5th.
You want me to make the motion, Mark?
Yeah.
I move that that we make the adjustment to the calendar starting school as described by Mr. Parker on April 5th.
I'll second that. And we'll do a vote. I'm a yes. Kate Grandeski?
Yes.
Brad? Brad?
Yes.
Okay. Narce?
Yes.
And Valerie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. This is the next action item is Forest Grove High School CNC machine purchase. And looks like Karen is going to speak to this.
Yeah, so we're here to request approval of the purchase of a CNC machine for our CTE woodworking class, specifically our cabinet making class. Just to give a little context, when we first started looking at Measure 98 funds and how we would spend those funds, we did a variety of things. One was looking at our existing programs and which of those programs we could really expand and enhance. We surveyed kids to kind of see what they were interested in looking at as far as career options, and just really aligning our programs to industry standards, and providing our kids with some college and career readiness skills and career opportunities. So a critical component to this particular program, what we wanted to do when we started out is develop a program, specifically cabinet making, that would really mirror our Viking House program, where you build a product that you sell and those proceeds go back into your program. So you're eventually, you've got a self-sustaining program. And so Arnolfo Martinez is the teacher of that program. And he is here to kind of explain, he's done some amazing research and bargaining. He is definitely a barterer and getting the best price. He's also a former Forest Grove High School graduate and Viking House member. So it's awesome to have him as part of this program. So, but I couldn't tell you half of what a CNC machine does. So he's here to answer some questions and kind of talk to you a little bit. He did, like I said, a lot of research and a lot of looking into the equipment, because it is an expensive piece of equipment, but it also allows us to expand our program and build cabinets a lot more efficiently. Arnolfo.
Hi, everyone. So what can I say? So the CNC is it's a computer numerical control is what it stands for. And what it allows us to do is take a drawing from an AutoCAD program, which we are also teaching at the high school, and cut it out on the machine, on a CNC. So the CNC, the software writes a code for the machine to cut it out. And that software piece is something that you have to buy every year. And I don't want to do that because it costs money. So when I was looking into what machine to buy, that was one of the biggest things for me to do. What can we buy and not have to purchase software every year? And that's where National Builders Hardware, they have a machine called an SEM. And there is roughly 200 plus of these machines in the Portland metro area. Styles Machinery is another one that is also a very good machine. And when I first started doing this research, I was all about Styles. And after looking and talking to everybody, because I actually went to a couple places that have the Styles machine, talked to the operators, and I also went to a couple places that have the SCM machine. The biggest feature that the SCM machine has is the safety feature that it has, where it's basically a machine, it's a router that holds a tool and it spins 24,000 RPMs. And it's all enclosed. So the big safety thing goes to the SCM machine. And that to me is worth, right on the piece of paper that we have for the purchase, it looks like the SCM is super expensive compared to the Styles machine. When you add it all up together, the cost, because Styles is on here without all the accessories that we need, we're $3,000 off. We're getting the most, we're trying to purchase the most expensive one, but in the long run, it's the better one because we don't have to purchase software every year. You guys have questions about that? I'm really nervous because I'm not around kids right now.
You're fine. Hey, I guess you're fine. You're doing a good job. Hey, what? So I'm assuming since it's here, it's over 50,000. What's the cost?
87.
87. It's
That was
a
going
big,
to be, yeah, that was going to be my question, or why we weren't getting the one for, I think the other one was 77 or something. So
so here's, sorry.
you kind of answered it there. Yeah, I mean, you did a
So
nice
the
job answering.
weird thing is about the 77,000 one
Yeah.
is when I was talking to the guys in Newburgh about because they have the silos machinery, the operator said, "Hey, we used to have a BC American machine. Don't get that."
No.
And I'm like, okay, done deal. Don't even do any research, because if someone's telling me not to get it because their support is inadequate, why even look?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I have a question. I do know about these machines, believe it or not, because my husband, that's his job. So, quick question. So I'm sure you want the best. How does this machine align with possibly with the machines that are used at Portland Community College, in particular, if our students want to transfer to the community college for a certificate or a 2-year degree and machining?
Go ahead, somebody was.
I was just gonna say, I wondered if you consulted with them just to make sure that this kind of the students get used to what's being used out in the community college, and then what's used out there in the industry as well. Just curious.
So as far as the community college at PCC, I'm not exactly sure. Here's what I know as far as the machine, the CNC that I'm looking at. I've never used this particular one. I've used a Como. They does the same exact thing. So there's going to be a little bit of training for me to figure out how to use this particular machine. The sales guy, which sounds bad because he's going to tell me whatever I want to hear, but he's telling me, since you have experience and you know some of the background, it's very comparable. There's going to be some limit switches that we have to learn about because the technology on this machine is newer than the one I'm used to. But for the industry, if you're in my class and you've used a machine, you'll be able to go tell somebody at a cabinet shop, hey, yeah, I have CNC knowledge. And if their software is a little bit different, it's, maybe a week of training and they're going to be able to get it. As far as the certificate, I don't think PCC has CNCs for woodworking. I think they have them for metal. I'm assuming they're similar, except for one cuts metal and one cuts wood, so it's a different bit. I know that the CNC that we're trying to get, I know that stone manufacturers also have it. It's just a different bit, and it has water instead of no water. So the alignment is going to be very comparable.
So this is for, I assumed it was metal, but it's for wood, so it would be for building construction, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Same idea.
Yeah.
Just one more question, curious about, are there additional fees on a yearly basis for possible repair or ongoing?
So with a repair, I guess it's like anything. If you have any piece of equipment, there's going to be some kind of repair at some point. I know with the SCM machine, even though they're like worldwide, they have a sales guy here in Portland, and he also services the machines. Easy to get a hold of. As far as like tech support, they have it. If it's like something that actually broke on the machine, we'll probably have a cost that goes with that. I'm assuming that all three of these machines have 1 to 3 year warranty for manufacturer's defects.
Hi, this is Valerie. I have a quick question. You mentioned that if you would have bought the Styles machine, that you would have to spend more money buying accessories to get the same amount that you're getting.
Yes. So I'm looking at this what's it called? It's just like a report, and the 3 quotes that I have are the National Builders Hardware, BZ America, and Styles. The Styles machinery price has $69,990, and it doesn't include the accessories like the HSK tool holder, the tool package, the course so I can get trained, the surge protector, the transformer, and the freight. Whereas
Okay.
SCN gave me, here's the whole package. This is everything you're gonna need. And that was my fault. I didn't relay that information to Eileen.
So for this National Builders Hardware, the one that you would like, you're not going to have to buy anything else?
No. That even includes the ducting that connects into our dust collector. I mean, the guy,
great.
John at the sales guy, he was really thorough. He was like, you're going to need this. I mean, things that I didn't even think about. The only thing we have to do on our end would be hook it up to power, and then they can install it correctly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And this is paid for by Measure 98 money?
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you. Is it a big piece of, it must be pretty big, isn't it? Is it a big piece of equipment?
Yeah, no, we need 15 by 8 feet.
Okay.
I mean, when we planned the Woods 3 shop, or the cabinet making shop, we kind of planned everything around it just in case we were going to be able to do it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's see, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, Mark.
Okay.
I move that we approve the purchase of the CNC machine as presented, specifically the National Builders Hardware Company one for $87,824.33, utilizing high school success measure 98 funds.
I will second it.
Okay. Let's see, we'll call for the vote here. Narce?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And Kate?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, I hope you get to use it next fall.
Yeah, no
Fingers
kidding.
crossed.
When do you get it? When would you get it?
I think we have to wait like 6 months
Oh,
because there's a shortage of steel apparently.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Ouch, that hurts.
You better get it ordered.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's see, last items here for this evening, future action items and 2022 school calendar. I don't know if Kevin has any comments on that one.
I can just give you a quick update. So thanks for Val, who is serving on the committee. We've had one meeting, and I'm working diligently on trying to get another meeting scheduled probably for next week, just checking with people's calendars. So we have, we looked at a preliminary draft. One of the things that we needed some more feedback that I'm going to try to get this week from the administrators, particularly the elementaries, is to look at the calendaring of the dates for the conferences. We tried and had a different model this year, and so we just need to kind of get some check-in. So I'm going to try to facilitate that so that we can get that back to the committee. Just so you know, preliminarily right now, the first day of school would be after the Labor Day holiday. So that would start on the 7th with a finishing date of school of June 15th. So that's the current draft that we're working on. The Thanksgiving week would stay in the same model that we have this year, so no changes proposed, just to keep that consistent with what the board approved last year. And then the other part, and I've been in discussion with the cabinet, and Val knows this from our first discussion, was do we build the calendar in kind of a hybrid model that we ended up shifting a lot of our Friday PD and grading days to Wednesdays so that it didn't impact, or try to minimize the amount of impact to student contact days. And in our conversation today in cabinet, the recommendation was, no, let's go ahead and build a calendar as if we would be back in full in-person 5-day week next year. So I just need to make a few of those adjustments, get some feedback on the conference weeks, and then hopefully we can bring you a draft this month to take a look at. Anything else, Val, that I maybe missed or you want to add to?
No, but I'm relieved to hear that we're going to make it based on being back full time, because that was the hardest part, was, not having no student days on Fridays. But if you're in hybrid, then that cohort's missing a bunch more days. So I think it'll be a lot easier to make the calendar going back full time.
Okay, thank you. So that'll be in April, right, Kevin, that you'll bring it to the board?
Gonna work as hard as I can to get it to you in
Okay.
April.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And just so you know, that's actually really similar to most of the other districts around us. We're all kind of scrambling to try, and normally we would already had this, but most of the other districts are in exactly the same place we are.
Yeah, okay. Okay, last item, future board items or board discussion. Is there any, look at the future board items here, is any comment or any discussion that needs to happen around those this evening? Okay, I don't hear any. So I think with that, we're going to adjourn for this evening. The time is 7:48 p.m. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.